others are in the process of applying for universities coming September. Would you give any tips or advice about university and choice-wise? What got you guys into choosing sports science?
Do you want to go first, Ben, or should I go?
You can go first. I'll jump in after. That's fine.
So I got into sports science just purely because I looked at the skill set. I looked at what I was good at during school, during college. And obviously a lot of it was predominantly sporting background. I had a big sporting background playing-wise. So it made sense to kind of focus more and find out more about the science behind it. And then once I got to uni, I started learning about the different career paths you could take within the sporting background. Obviously, sports science is one that come up. And then the opportunity to work in professional football within professional sports was sounded really appealing. So definitely I would advise looking at unis and looking at career paths that kind of aid that, especially if that's sort of the route you're looking to go into.
It's difficult to transition from uni to getting your jobs.
Go on, Ben.
So I come out of university, and to be honest, at the time I was quite nervous. I had no idea what I was going to do. I thought I was looking at different jobs online, and I thought it'd be quite challenging to get one straight away. But I sent out my CV. I emailed a few people. I used some contacts that I had. Obviously, throughout university, you meet a lot of people. You meet older students who then go on and get jobs doing different things. So it's good to keep in contact with them. So I contacted someone that was 2 years above me at university at the time, and he had just started working at Charlton, and he was the one that got me in for some work experience. So it's about making contacts and just being professional, having a good CV. But yeah, if you do things properly, then there's no reason why you can't move on and get the job or the career you want.
With what's the most important reading element, factor, type of strength training, conditioning? What's the most important thing that you feel is within your job? What's the most important thing that you do? And then what's the most enjoyable thing? So this could be like I said, it could be I don't know if it's a test or whatever.
So the most important one we do is kind of tracking the players' loads when they're training, especially on the big strength days. It's important just because we don't overload the players. We don't get them in, we don't leave them going into games with DOMs or soreness. We kind of make sure they're staying within the right threshold. But then the most enjoyment bit is working with the injured players, just purely because I like motivating the players. I spend a lot of time with injured players that kind of beat up out the squad for whatever reason. I do enjoy spending time with them, and just seeing the other side of football is not the side that's all about getting money or playing, or just the side that they are real people, they have families, and kind of seeing how psychologically being injured and how that affects them and the drive to kind of get back in the squad. I do enjoy working with players when they're not their lowest, but at a point where they're not as high as they would normally be.
When you once Ben spoken, can you come back to the importance of the again linked to what they all study, the DOMs and the thresholds, and that in particular, and just talk about that in a little bit more detail to the students, because I think that would really help them. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah, so I'll quickly just touch on, I'll just expand on what you just said. So my most important thing for my actual job is more the tracking the field-based stuff they're doing, and if they're training hard enough, and if they're doing enough on the training pitch to prepare themselves for the Saturday. So you spend all week leading up to the game, all the planning that goes into it, all the preparation, all the gym work, all the analysis of the opposition, analysis of your own stuff that you're planning on doing. So then another rewarding part of it is obviously on the match day is the game and winning the game. That's what you work towards all week. It's all about winning games, really.
Question. This was relating to the nutrition stuff. Do you have players who are probably vegetarian or vegan, and do they perform differently to compared to players who are on different sort of diets compared to them?
I'll go first if you want. So obviously, the longer I've actually worked at the club, there seems to be more and more different nutritional requirements. We've got quite a few vegans now. We've got a couple of vegetarians, other players that have certain like religious needs and don't eat certain foods. But the nutritionist is great. Like here speak to them, here tell them what alternatives they can eat to get in the necessary minerals and different protein options if they're not eating meat as such. So I don't think that I wouldn't recommend any sort of diet specifically. But there's always ways around it, and always ways that you can get the right nutrients that you need.
I'll go as well. Yeah, we've had a, especially during the whole the game changers outbreak, we had a lot of players jump on the whole vegan diet. We've got a few pescatarians, and yeah, a lot of the guys jumped on it and they tried the diets. We didn't really push it as stuff.
My question is, obviously, I don't want to go to university, but I want to back up if football doesn't go the way I want it to. And yeah, but I'm like strictly like really don't want to go to uni because I do have a lot of like learning difficulties, and like going to uni would just, I don't know, it's just not my sort of thing. So what would you recommend for that?
I would recommend look at what you enjoy. I feel like now that the day and age you're going into, you can make a real good career. You can make a lot of money doing something that doesn't necessarily require going to uni. Like obviously I'm a personal trainer. I have my own business. I didn't go to uni for that. I've done my personal training course, and now I run my own business working with clients on a day-to-day basis. And I didn't need to go to uni. Oh, you don't need to go to uni for that. So there's loads of options that you can do without going to uni. I would recommend understanding and really looking and focusing on what you enjoy, what you kind of see yourself doing long term in terms of career. And then you can kind of dial in a bit and go a little bit deeper and look at how you possibly would kind of work day in with that. So whether it is, I don't know, whether it is being like a trainer like myself or anything like that. It depends on what you kind of enjoy, but I wouldn't say uni is the be all and end all, but it is an advantage. It would help, but if you're really adamant against going, I would say that there's loads of opportunities there's alternatives you can do.
Yeah, pretty much the same as what Ayo's just said, but like just if there is a certain career route that you want to go down, and there's certain jobs that you think that you want to do when you're old and you're ready for it, then maybe just look at the type of qualifications that you need for that role. So like you said, if it was to be a strength conditioning coach or a personal trainer, then look at what kind of qualifications that you would need to be able to fulfill that job. And if you don't need a degree, then that's great. You can go and do other courses and other things that will allow that. Obviously, there might be certain careers where you need a degree, things such as like a physiotherapist. I think you have to have a degree in physio to be able to do that job. But there's loads of jobs where you don't need a specific degree.
That's fine. So I wanted to ask, how do you know when a player is ready, like safely ready to return to training, especially because obviously they'll have effects of like reversibility and stuff like that?
I'll go and you're going, Ben. I'll go.
Yeah, you go and I'll jump in if I need to. So
especially if they've been injured, there'll be a series of tests, a series of markers that they've got to have checked off before they can be allowed to train. Obviously, it depends on the injury. But again, we work closely with specialists in terms of like maybe hamstring specialists, knee, toe specialists, depending on the injury. And they'll kind of guide us in terms of saying, right, X amount of weeks before they can even start going into training or start being available to go on the grass. But then that depends on them ticking certain strength markers, performance markers, movement markers, range of motion markers, all before they can even start kicking a ball. So there are a few tests that we do, but again, it depends down to the injury. But that's sort of the protocol before a player is allowed to start training. But even when they do start training, it is built up gradually, because the last thing you want is them to re-injure and go back to square one.
Yeah, it's exactly the same as what Ayo just said. Just sensible progressions throughout. So every time you can have a small progression, and you progress until you're in a position where you are ready to go back to training. But even then, when a player returns, they might just do part of the session or a couple of half sessions before they then join into a full session. Because it's not just the injury. If they're coming back from a knee injury, then obviously all their other muscles might be detrained from the amount of time they've spent out. So it depends on the injury itself. But it's just more about being sensible and following the guidelines set by whether it's the physios or the surgeon or whoever's dealt with the injury as well.